Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us this Wednesday. I'm Jeanelle Slade.
And I'm Russ Riesinger. A marathon day as Democrats lay out their case in President Trump's impeachment trial. House
impeachment managers accuse the president of abusing his powers by withholding military aid to Ukraine in order to try and get foreign help with his re-election.
Well, Democrats have 24 hours over 3 days to present their case, and then President Trump's lawyers will also get 24 hours to present his defense.
CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand takes us to Capitol Hill.
In day one of opening arguments, House impeachment managers spent hours laying out the details of their investigation that began months ago.
Clearly, Donald Trump felt the Ukrainians owed him.
On the Senate floor, lead manager Adam Schiff began building the House's case of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress.
President Trump withheld hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid to a strategic partner at war with Russia to secure foreign help with his re-election. In other words, to cheat. The president's extensive effort to cover up evidence of his misconduct is unprecedented in American history.
During a dinner break, a number of Senate Republicans said they've heard nothing new.
I think we're going to see an awful lot of repetition, making the same points over and over again.
Late Wednesday, the president returned to Washington from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, where he repeated he had done nothing wrong.
There's nothing here. I had a very innocent conversation with a very fine gentleman from the Ukraine, and it was based on that. People don't even want to talk about the conversation.
The president also said witnesses are up to the Senate, but claims executive privilege would prevent testimony from former National Security Advisor John Bolton and other key officials.
The Constitution protects executive privilege. There's a reason for that. There's constitutional privileges at stake that don't just affect this presidency, by the way, that affect the office of the presidency.
The president's defense team could begin presenting its case as early as Saturday. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The trial is set to resume tomorrow morning at 11, and CBS will once again provide special coverage.
An obscure Montana tax credit program approved by state lawmakers 4 years ago got its day in court. Today, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Now at issue whether religious schools can be excluded from government-backed scholarship programs. It's a case with potentially far-reaching implications for church-state relations all across the country.
Q2's Jay Cohn joins us now with more on today's historic high court showdown.
Well, Jeanelle, Russ, it's safe to say no one involved in establishing this tax credit program 4 years ago in Montana could have foreseen that this issue would end up on the plate of the nation's highest court. But when some Flathead County parents sued the state, claiming that Montana's no aid clause violated their religious freedom, well, the U.S. Supreme Court was the ultimate destination. And that's exactly where today's showdown took place, with the eyes of the nation watching. CBS's Jan Crawford, the network's chief legal correspondent, was on hand in the court to witness today's hearing. While she admits it's a mistake to predict the outcome of a case based on oral arguments alone, she tells us the battle lines were clearly drawn.
But based on the arguments today, the conservative justices, and they have the majority on the Supreme Court, seem sympathetic to the idea that these parents should be able to have access to that scholarship money to send their children to those private religious schools. The liberal justices were skeptical and seemed concerned that a ruling for the parents in this case would kind of open up a Pandora's box and potentially undermine public funding for public schools.
Chief Justice John Roberts, fresh off a late night presiding over the impeachment trial in the Senate, posed sharp questions to both sides. Many believe he may have the swing vote on this case.
And he was pretty active during the arguments. He's a conservative, and this is a court that in recent years has been more favorable with a conservative majority to claims of religious discrimination.
The no aid clause in Montana's Constitution bans any taxpayer dollars from going to religious schools. It mirrors similar laws in 36 other states. Today, attorneys for the parents said such clauses were motivated by bigotry toward Catholicism in the 1800s. But the state's attorney said that wasn't the case in Montana.
Montana's lawyer in court today made clear that whatever may have motivated those state constitutional amendments in the 1800s was not the case in Montana, because it rewrote that in 1972 and actually had testimony from religious leaders and pastors who supported this amendment, saying that they were worried about government kind of interfering with their ability to practice religion.
As for when to expect a decision, Crawford believes that will happen in June. Now, she told me this year's new term for the court features a full plate of contentious, controversial issues. She says it's the most she's seen in her 25 years of covering the court. These tough decisions, she says, takes longer to reach, frequently involve dissenting opinions, and just take more of the court's time to decide. Jeanelle, Russ?
All right, thanks so much, Jay.
And if you'd like to listen to that full interview with CBS Chief Legal Correspondent Jan Crawford, it's attached to this story on KTVQ.com.
A Billings middle school teacher now faces drug charges after police allegedly found methamphetamine in his home last week. Sean Fritzler, a sixth grade social studies teacher at Ben Steele Middle School, has been placed on administrative leave following this arrest. Officers allegedly found glass pipes, syringes, a digital scale, and baggies filled with a substance that tested positive for methamphetamine. Officers also found a notebook filled with writing on the kitchen counter, apparently regarding drug sales. Fritzler shared the home with Mark Kramlich, a former Billings teacher who was fired in 2017. Now, both men, along with a third roommate, face possession of dangerous drugs and drug paraphernalia charges.
Billings police asking for your help tonight to find a missing Billings woman. 33-year-old Ashley Bauer was reported missing on Monday. Her family says friends last saw her on Christmas Day at a home in the 800 block of Avenue B. At that time, they say Ashley was carrying some bags and was supposed to go to a friend's home in the 400 block of 30th Street West. Bauer, who doesn't have a car, also doesn't have a permanent residence and frequently stays short periods of time with friends.
Well, tonight we are still awaiting autopsy results on the death of Selena Not Afraid, which are expected to be released tomorrow.
And Not Afraid's disappearance and death have been felt by people all across the state of Montana. Tonight, students in Bozeman and Missoula held candlelight vigils in her honor. Nearly everyone in attendance on the Bozeman campus wearing red, a continuous symbol representing the loss of missing Native American women.
In Missoula tonight, dozens of students gathered at the Payne Family Native American Center. The main message tonight in both college towns: continue to seek justice despite foul play not being suspected. On Tuesday, County Attorney Jay Harris said his office will investigate. Not Afraid's family announced it will hold a service for her at Hardin High School on Sunday morning at 11. And many around the state are remembering Selena. Last night, the Miles City Community Softball team, Miles City Community College softball team, which includes Selena's cousin, came together for a memorial vigil.
The city of Hardin will move forward to create a police force of its own instead of relying on the Bighorn County Sheriff's Department. In a 5-to-1 vote, the Hardin City Council formally established its intent last night. That issue has been part of discussion since the fall of 2018. The preliminary plan is for Hardin to hire a total of 7 law enforcement personnel, 1 police chief, 3 full-time officers, and 3 part-time officers. Between hiring personnel, buying equipment, and finding a location, it could all cost between $412,000 and $514,000 a year. Hardin currently pays around $490,000 per year to Bighorn County for law enforcement services.
Our biggest push is public safety with going forward with this process. The other push is trying to rebuild the reputation of Hardin, trying to promote some economic development, getting businesses back down here again, getting people to move back down here. It's kind of hard to recover from sometimes, but we're going to do everything we can to promote that public safety and bring people back.
The city still has to find a location for the police station and apply for funding grants. The mayor wants to get the police force written into next year's budget by July.
Turning to weather tonight, the calendar may say January, but our temperatures do not feel like it. Bob McGuire, and it's going to stay warm for a while.
Yeah, we're really enjoying this. We've already talked about this upcoming week's going to be pretty warm for us, and we were wondering what about after that. Well, here is our 8 to 14-day outlook, and as you see the temperatures, this is January 29th through February 4th, and look at those red and orange colors. That all means above average temperatures across western part of the country, also across the high line of the country, and even here in Montana, we're looking at basically temperatures a little warmer than average average for us. But what about precipitation? Well, it looks like it will be a little bit wetter than average January 29th through the 4th, especially out in western Montana. But some of that wetter stuff will continue to push all the way across the state. And when it comes to actual temperatures, here's where we are on Friday, this coming Friday. We're looking generally dry conditions and also kind of warm stuff. But it really isn't until about maybe Wednesday when we see a little batch of cool air move in. But it's a one-day only sale, because after that, by the end of the month, we're warming back up again as the cold air moves on. We'll have the rest of your forecast in a few more minutes.
All right, thanks so much, Bob. Well, the U.S. Department of Interior gave the green light today to construct the Keystone XL pipeline across federal lands here in Montana. The announcement gives TC Energy the okay to put pipeline down across 44 miles in northeast Montana. The $8 billion project has been in the works for more than 10 years and picked up momentum with support of the Trump administration. The project still faces several court challenges. In a Reuters news report, TC Energy says it plans to start pre-construction work in February and could build the segment across the Canadian-U.S. border by April.
Ahead on the news at 10, recent trade deals giving Montana sheep farmers reason to be bullish about new markets for their wool. We'll take a closer look in tonight's Ag Report.
From Glendive to MSU to sports' biggest stage, Scott checks in with Mike Person of the Super Bowl-bound 49ers later in sports.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.